If you have ADHD and you think that executive functions are growable, then forget it. Basically, we don't have good executive functions. This causes us to struggle in the areas of planning and multiple step tasks, as well as time management, but also email and message management. You will struggle to turn up on time despite having written things in a calendar or put them in a digital calendar. And this causes upset to others around us. We let people down, we let ourselves down. And it's very frustrating. Forgetting to do things that we said we were going to do or that we planned to do just has a knock-on effect on all sorts of areas of our lives, whether it's our work or our relationships with family, friends, partners, children, parents. People, after a while, when we keep letting them down, they start to doubt us, and they show it. And it's understandable. These moments when we let people down are what I like to call micro failures. And so the micro failures happen to us on a daily basis. You know, if we just live our ADHD lives as we have been, certainly as I did for many years, we struggle to maintain people's trust, and we struggle to trust ourselves. Now, so the natural response from people around us when they experience one of our micro failures, we've let them down, we haven't turned up, we haven't brought what we said we would when we said we would bring it, we haven't done the thing we said we would do for them. Their natural response is to make a negative comment to us. And we all know what that feels like. We are frustrated in ourselves, and we know that it didn't happen because, but negative comments are hard to hear. And when you've been hearing them throughout your life, there's a statistic that says that the average ADHD child, by the time we're 25, will have received 10,000 more negative comments than a non-ADHDer. And that's a lot of negativity. The knock-on effect of the negative comments is on our self-esteem. And I always describe our self-esteem as we're all born with a kind of melon-sized self-esteem here. And I think of the negative comments as like a little goblin chipping away with a hammer and chisel at this melon-sized self-esteem that we were born with or had when we were kids. But as he chips away, as those negative comments flow in, this melon-sized self-esteem gets shrunk down. And by the time we're in our mid-20s, it's the size of a raisin. And low self-esteem has so many negative pulls on a person. And we stop believing that we can turn up. We stop believing that we will do the things that we say we're going to do. And we will stop, for example, going, yes, I'll get involved in that. I'll come on Sunday, because we're dreading failing to turn up or turning up late or not bringing what we were supposed to bring to help the group. And so we start to shy away from those opportunities. And once we start shying away from opportunities in our lives, we're just missing out on our true potential, on what we could be achieving, what we could be having in terms of relationships, friendships, job opportunities, business opportunities. So what to do about this? I can tell you now, these executive functions are not going to magically grow themselves to where they should be. We can't train them to be there realistically. And so look at it this way. If a man loses half of his leg and he can't walk, but he sees other people going from A to B to C, all he really wants to do is to be able to go from A to B to C. Now, I could sit with that man and I could rub his stump with him and commiserate with him and pray that something will happen that will magically restore his leg. But we all know that that doesn't work. Alternatively, what I'm going to offer you now is a prosthetic leg for that stump. Not for your leg, but for your brain. The best thing that I ever came up with was, when I came up with it, I didn't know I had ADHD, but I had moved back from living in Morocco, where I'd been living for 12 years and had been very successful in business. And I had a 50-person team around me. And that team had been scaffolding me. You need to get to this meeting, jump in the van, the driver's going to take you. You need to go next to here. I was very creative, But I had a team behind me who made sure that I stayed on track. I didn't find out I had ADHD until much later, many years later. But when I moved back from Morocco to the UK and I had sold my businesses, this is 7 or 8 years on, I no longer had a team around me, and I couldn't understand why. I was very diligently writing in all my plans into a calendar. But of course, a calendar, if it's under a cushion, under a sofa, out of sight, out of mind, it's all very well putting things into the calendar, but if we're not looking at it, we're not going to turn up. And I very quickly realized that I needed to use a calendar that could shout at me, a digital calendar that could go beep, beep, beep. And I'd look at it and go, yeah, well, what is it? Oh, yeah, I've got to go. And I thought, scaffold me. That will work. And so it was 2005 at this point. Smartphones were all coming out, the iPhone and everything. And so I started using my digital calendar, and I failed miserably. It wasn't working. It took me 2.5 years of trial and error to actually find a way that the digital calendar could work for me. And it was a very painful time because I was desperate to stop all this missing stuff and missing opportunities. And so I just persevered, and I started to have realizations about how to use it. And so this, once it clicked in with me, it completely transformed my life, and it's transformed the lives of many of my coachees, the people I've coached, many ADHD entrepreneurs, professionals, university students, and it's really quite simple. So if you're interested in getting yourself a prosthetic executive functions, this is the best way that I have come up with, and actually it just works. The great thing about it is that it works almost immediately, and there are virtually no rules to follow because we don't like rules. I developed this around my brain, which I didn't know at the time. I didn't even know what ADHD was back in 2005, and I wouldn't be diagnosed until 2019. But between 2007, once I sort of mastered the digital calendar in a very ADHD suitable way, I didn't have that label of ADHD. I just knew that I was managing my time and my inbox and my communications very badly. The inbox stuff for us ADHDers is a nightmare. And I had to come up with a way of using a mail client to manage my various email addresses, which in a way that I would know if I have read a message. And if I'd read a message, had I answered it? Because once you read it, it marks itself as read. And so I developed a very simple system, which I teach in my InToCalm online digital course, which is under 4 hours of your time. But I go through all aspects of what I call InToCalm. In for inbox, to for to-do lists, and I'll explain that in just a second. CAL for calendar, and M on the end is the method. InToCalm, inbox, to-do list, which I'll get to, calendar, which we've spoken about, that method. So InToCalm, and it does it, and this took me into, for the first time since moving back to London and not having people around me to scaffold me, it took me into this place of calm because I knew where I stood. I knew what I was supposed to do next. I had warnings and alerts, and I show you in the InToCalm course, mini course, how to make all of that happen. It took me a long time to work out because I didn't know what I was battling with. But many of my clients who had previously had ADHD coaching with other coaches had always said they had great coaching, but it never solved the practical issues of these big causes of negative comments, the micro failures that lead us to receive negative comments, which is just shrinking our self-esteem down to a point where we don't really truly believe anymore that we can effectively make our dreams come true. And I'm telling you now, I was a mess. So InToCalm is what I came up with, and it truly can be as effective for you as it has for me and the hundreds of people who I've taught it to so far. It's a tried and tested, proven by me and by many others over 20 years now. I don't see anything like this out there. And I really want you to, if you want to improve your life, and it's not just about your calendar and your inbox, this has a positive effect by knocking on to making you reliable, trustable, more likable, because we're less defensive when we're not being attacked with negative comments. This is a life changer. It changed my life. I had to come up with it because nobody was telling me of anything that could help me. Regular productivity systems, they just don't work for us. They rely too heavily on having good executive functions, which, as I've said, and as you know, we do not have. So the to-do list part of my InToCalm method, it's this. I'm telling you now, you will not make another to-do list ever. To-do lists are basically lists of doom. They are lists of things that we have not managed to get done. I realized that making to-do lists was giving me this kind of dopamine kick because it felt like I was achieving something just by putting everything into the list. However, the reality is we are not achieving anything by putting it on the list. We are just creating a long list, which is overwhelming. And when it grows bigger and bigger, we are less likely to feel enticed into starting to slog our way through that marathon of tasks. So what you'll learn in InToCalm is that there is a much better way of logging the things that you need to get done. I started doing this back in 2005, and it was the beginning really of the turnaround from being very chaotic and struggling to move forwards with what I wanted to do in my new business and in my personal relationships. The to-do list is a form of procrastination. We're already procrastinators. What we do not need is a tool to help us procrastinate. I will show you in the InToCalm mini course how to revolutionize task management and ticking them off. In my next video, I'm going to be talking about my system for prioritizing tasks. This is a total game changer. It's a very graphic image which really helps me and has helped many of my ADHD clients to be able to very easily identify the things that we need to do first and then the lesser things. It's all about moving the needle on the dial, and that translates directly to whether we become successful and happy and feel like we're achieving our potential. And I know ADHD brains have incredible potential, and we really have wonderful ideas, dreams, and we are able to make them happen. But making them happen without the prosthetic executive functions that InToCalm offers, really, well, it's really hard. And if you have been struggling, going round and round in circles, having those micro failures which have just made you feel like a big failure, do not despair. Click in the link and join me on my InToCalm mini course, which is priced so that everyone can afford it. And trust me, you will make that money back very quickly.